Apologies accepted. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. We'll get to Nick Saban calling the kettle black, and Georgia Southern wins their 8th straight with a controversial call in overtime. And I will continue to say Happy New Year for the foreseeable future. I'm usually do it till the February 1st. February 1st, not Happy New Year. But a lot of times you don't see somebody for a couple weeks. Oh, Happy New Year. So I don't mind it. You get a month. All right. Kind of like the beginning of the season. The beginning of the season is over a month in. Now we're into the season. All right. So JMU played Oregon tougher than Texas Tech did by a wide margin. And what has to be taken into consideration is that JMU did it in Eugene, whereas Texas Tech apparently traveled well and had a bunch of fans down in South Florida. They were on a neutral field. Yeah, but Dave, all of JMU's points and yards came against the backups. Yeah, a lot of it did. Sure did. But where did all of Texas Tech's points come from, which were 0? They got none. Zippo. Texas Tech finished with 215 yards. It took them 3.5 quarters, more than 3.5 quarters to get to 198 yards. You know how long it took JMU to get to 197 yards? 1/2. And that's against all the starters, and that's on the road in not the biggest of all stadiums, but plenty of Oregon fans jumped on me and telling me how loud it is at the stadium. They're playing with half a stadium, well, maybe 3/4 of it full. It wasn't even full down in South Florida, which it is what it is. Everybody's picking up on the whole, you got to have 2 rounds of the college football playoffs on campus. Absolutely. It's just too much to spend, especially if you're crisscrossing the country like Oregon, going down to South Florida. God, you can only spend so much money. And if you think you're going to win, you're going to end up being in the semifinals championship. You want to wait for that. All right, back at it. I also want to make it clear because I'm not moving the goalposts, okay? 2 things I'm not going to tell you. I don't think that JMU beats Texas Tech. Texas Tech's defense is elite. That may be the best defense in the country. Make sure we understand what happened here. They scored a last touchdown at the end of the ball game. I don't know what that was about. That's not, as far as I'm concerned, that's not cool. I heard Jesse Palmer saying it's your job to stop him. The game is over. You can take a knee. All right, that's I don't think that's right. All right. But anyways, that's at the end of the ball game. Game's over. The other touchdown came right after a turnover. They started at the 5-yard line. That defense for Texas Tech is elite. So they may have done better against JMU than Oregon did. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you 2 things, that JMU is beating Oregon on a neutral field or that JMU is beating Texas Tech. Don't move the goalposts. What I am stating, and it is a fact, whether Oregon was trying hard or not, JMU played better against Oregon than Texas Tech did. And JMU did it in Oregon, whereas Texas Tech was on a neutral field. Period. End of story. And then we'll eventually get to, I don't know if we talk about it here, but, Alabama got their butts kicked. But someone's going to tell me the big difference between Alabama getting blown out and Tulane and JMU getting blown out. JMU played Oregon closer in Oregon than Alabama played Indiana. All right. Well, we talk about the money, different levels of funding and all those. How many 4-stars are at Indiana right now? How many 5-stars? And what do we think the revenue generation is between those 2 schools? All right. Or the athletic department funding between Alabama and Indiana is. Maybe Indiana's picked it up a little bit. But what do we think the difference is there? All right. And yet, that game wasn't close. But we're going to make all the kind of excuses for Alabama because they deserve to be there. even though they weren't playing very well at the end of the year. Needed a miracle to come back against Auburn. Looked like crap against Georgia. And then if you want to throw some shade to OU, I mean, Oklahoma's got to be shooting themselves. We were up 17-0 at home and got blown out by double digits. And this is what Indiana does in the Rose Bowl. That's crazy. All right. Plenty of players for Indiana made plays in that ball game that had played for JMU. All right. Pons wasn't good enough to make first team Sun Belt. He made second team Sun Belt. Then when he got to the Big Ten, all of a sudden he's good enough to be first team Big Ten on the first team Big Ten. And he was the defensive player of the ball game. So Rant had a touchdown. A lot of former JMU players contributed to that victory and this whole season. And again, what Curt Cignetti is doing he ain't wrong when he says he's going to make a great movie. All right, it's not going to take very long for that to happen. If they win this national championship, and there's no reason why they can't, they got a tough game against Oregon. I know they beat them already once this year in Oregon. You get a second bite at the apple. We'll see how they do. And Oregon has put together, I think, two pretty good ball games, right? They had their offensive output against JMU, and defensively were outstanding against Texas Tech. Some questionable Dan Lanning decisions. Forget about the ridiculous touchdown at the end. He said he should have kicked a field goal to go up 6-0 earlier. Would have made 9-0 at half, I believe. And they went for it on 4th and 2. It's one thing if you're inside the 1, but he rolled out at 4th and 2, and that was a poor decision. Then I thought there was another poor decision where he should have punted on 4th and 2 just over midfield or something like that. They threw an interception, didn't really matter. But I wasn't buying the whole Jesse Palmer. Well, their defense is playing really well, so you might as well go for it. Why don't you pin them back at the 10? I'm up. Why do I need to give them some good field position? I didn't understand that. So couple of questionable decisions by Dan Lanning. Personally, I would consider that game management wise. But other than that, Oregon has been playing. I mean, outside of Indiana, Oregon is playing as good as anybody in this postseason, right? Miami obviously playing pretty well, but Oregon is playing. They've played 2 games. Miami played 1. All right. So that's not going to be an easy ball game for Indiana. But I think JMU I saw Brandon Walker apologize. I saw Ryan Clark apologize. There's a bunch of other people. I didn't even know Grant Paulson, he does baseball on XM. He's a Washington, D.C. guy talking about, the next time you hear that a G5 team doesn't belong, just remember Ohio State got blitzkrieg. Texas Tech got hammered, and so did Alabama. All right. Again, there's got to be a big difference between JMU getting beat and Tulane getting beat and Texas Tech and Alabama getting blown out, because there's no difference. But they're going to try and tell you that there is. All right. Which I find ridiculous. Okay. I will preface the next segment by saying have the utmost respect for Nick Saban, but he's kidding himself if he actually believes this quote, which I believe is attributed to him. We'll talk about that right after I tell you about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, Dave Schultz, a Lockdown Sunbelt. Your teams every day. Still get one more day off. I'm off today, off on Sunday, working on Saturday. Then we do work on Monday, training on Tuesday, and then off Wednesday and Thursday. I get a lot of time off here to end up wrap up the year and start it. Okay, so this is oh, you know what I didn't do? Let me see if I can upload this here because I want you to be able to see it while I am talking about it. If I can get it here, there we go. Okay. Because, Nick Saban has been talking about, the G5 is minor league and, the Power Four is major league and the G5 doesn't belong in the playoffs and a lot of yada, yada, yada. Okay. But because he's Nick Saban and I respect him too, whatever he says holds a certain amount of glory is not the right word, but a high standard. Okay. But let me see. This is the quote attributed to Saban that I saw. This came in October, I believe. Maybe attributed to somebody else, but I thought I saw someone tweeted out attributing it to him. Okay. Football used to be about honor, team, and tradition. Now it's about who can pay the most. If we keep down this road, well, turn a game of pride into a business of greed. Okay, a couple things about that quote. Okay, first of all, was it ever about honor? Really? Because teams were paying players forever. All right. Also, when the players got into trouble, guess who was calling the people in charge to make sure they got out of trouble? Nick Saban had an offensive lineman in northern Louisiana get busted with the guns and drugs in his car, which usually results in jail time. Now, I don't know what Saban did, but either the police chief or the DA literally said, these guys work too hard outside. The rest of us work inside in air conditioning. We're going to let these guys go. Well, there's a lot of honor in that. And that was the only ones, and that's something about we heard of. I'm sure there's plenty of incidents. Heck, we've just heard about the NFL incidents that happened either a month ago or at the beginning of the season. That gets taken care of locally because it's important to have those players play. All right. Is there any honor in that? Okay. That's where the honor is. Now, where did the greed come from? And we'll talk about the honor as well. The greed is coming from the coaches, not the players. The players finally figured it out. We need some of the pie as well. There's actually a movie out there because this was an idea that I had from years ago that the players, like the week of mostly the Final Four, but week of the Final Four or a couple of hours, maybe the day before the national championship game, representatives from both teams go to the NCAA and say, you know what? Now's a good time for us to get paid. We're hearing about these millions and billions of dollars that everybody has made except us. So now would be a good time. All right. Wasn't a successful movie. All right. Anyways, but now the players getting paid because now the coaches have been all about greed. All right. And if you want to talk about honor and greed, Nick Saban is the perfect example of that. He went from LSU to the Miami Dolphins. Okay. That was about money. So he wanted to get back to the NFL, but he was making more money. Now, ironically enough, or oddly enough, some of these college coaches would be taking a pay cut. I don't think there's too many NFL coaches making $12 million a year. That's what Lane Kiffin is making, speaking of honor or lack thereof. So Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame probably making $8 to $10 million. He was up for the Giants job. They may have offered him the job, and he said at $5 million, I'm not going, which is pretty good. But $8 to $10 million goes a lot farther in South Bend than $5 million goes in New York. Or Jersey, as the case may be. And then Saban, 2 years in, talking about the Alabama job. I'm not going. And then he went. A lot of honor in that. Right? And then somewhere along the way, the Texas job was open. And Jimmy Sexton comes along and starts floating rumors Miss Terry is in Austin. And all of a sudden, Nick Saban gets a new contract. Is he really leaving? I doubt it. Did Alabama pay off his house? You bet they did. That's all about greed. It's all about money. Let me know the first coach that says, you know what, I'm staying. All right. When they do, means they weren't getting the job. Kenny Dillingham with Arizona State stayed there. He wasn't getting the Michigan job. All right. Brent Key stayed at Georgia Tech. A lot of these coaches did stay. Kyle Whittingham didn't. There's something going on at Utah. I don't know what that's about. But anyways. But it's all about the money, which I really don't have a problem with. It is what it is. All right. Kind of like, these coaches, if you want me, you need to pay me or else I'm going there. Kind of like these franchises, right? Kansas City, the Chiefs are moving to Kansas because these billionaires are getting money from the state of Kansas. It's all about the money. All right. But don't tell me it's something different now that the players can get paid. All of a sudden, it's something different now that the players can get paid. College football hasn't changed their business model yet. That's the problem. They just keep on asking for money. I mean, talk about lack of honor. What did Jeff Landry do as the Louisiana governor? He's like, we're doing what with Brian Kelly's contract? We're paying all of that money out. These contracts are crazy. Then Lane Kiffin gets a bigger payday, and he says we did what we had to do. Don't blame, don't blame the player, blame the game. Stop. All right. If LSU, which the current AD said, people would crawl on their hands and knees for the job, then I think Lane Kiffin was making just over $9 million. You know what, Lane? We'll bump your pay up to 10. If Ole Miss wants to keep them because LSU is a better job, although I'm not sure that is the case now. Used to be, but I'm not sure that it is now. Then Ole Miss would have to pay him more. That's usually the way that it is, right? The better job pays a little bit less because it's a better job. That's the way they can pay more people more money. Whereas the job that is perceived to be lesser than has to pay more, has to overpay a little bit. But that's not what happened, all right? So this has never been about honor. It's never been about team. It's never been about the tradition is cheating. That's the tradition in college football. It's been about cheating. And now when it went from hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars is one thing. Now it's gone from hundreds of $millions to billions of dollars. And now and the Big Ten wants to do investment firms. This is crazy. Please don't tell me it's anything but the money. All right. That's where I would say Nick Saban is wrong. Again, let's look at that quote again. And then for those listening, football used to be about honor, team, and tradition. Now it's about who can pay the most. If we keep down this road, we'll turn a game of pride into a business of greed. Yeah. Coaches and schools have turned it into a business of greed. They keep on giving out those outrageous contracts and then have to pay them off if they don't succeed. And then here's the strangest part. This is amazing. All right. Apparently, and in this case, he may be worth it, but we'll see what happens. He hasn't even won the national championship yet because of how far he's gotten in the college football playoff in the semifinals. Curt Cignetti will be the third highest paid coach in America. Now, I don't know what that does for everybody else because everybody else probably has that in their contract. Well, who's that going to be behind? Lane Kiffin and Dabo? Anybody getting paid more than them? He's going, Curt Cignetti could be getting his third raise. He got one at the end of last year, making the playoff. He got one this year during the season when Penn State was coming calling, I guess. And now he's going to get his third raise in 2 seasons. But don't tell me it's not about the money. Please don't tell me it's not about the money. All right. Okay. Let's talk basketball. All right. More into the Sun Belt. I know what I was doing there, but it's about the money. That's why the Power Four is going to stay where they are, and they're going to eliminate as much of the G5 as they can because they just want the money. That's all that it is. All right. Okay. Let's take a timeout. Georgia Southern survives, win their 8th straight ball game. We'll talk about that after I tell you about game time. There's nothing like a college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The app is incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying tickets in just a couple of minutes. I love being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I know exactly what I was getting. The zone deals stood out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing college football tickets starting as low as $25 makes it easy to plan a game day trip. Knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. It's been a pretty good staycation, I will say that. I have decluttered. I got a second bedroom that I really never cleaned up after I moved in. I moved in October, and I'm moving everything in the storage unit and throwing some stuff away. So that's good. Decluttering is always good to start the year. Okay, Georgia Southern, only 2 ball games today. Georgia Southern played at Coastal, and Southern Miss was at Monroe. All right. Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina, another really solid basketball game. Georgia Southern wins in overtime, 82-81. Coastal Carolina had a shot at winning this basketball game. Little love tap at the end of a regulation. On a forced three-pointer, that was the only thing. Would have been a bailout call. Nonetheless, there was a little bit of a body when the shooter for Coastal Carolina landed. But they didn't call it. And then Coastal Carolina player didn't get his hands straight up at the end of first overtime. And Georgia Southern went to the free throw line and made 1 of 2. All right. But just a really good basketball game. Let's see if we can get the split box here. Georgia Southern led for most of it, 30 minutes. Coastal Carolina led for 9.5. We have largest lead here. Let's see here. Largest lead was 5 for Coastal Carolina at 10 minutes to go in the second half, 52-47. And Georgia Southern got off to a really good start. They led 16-4. They went on a 16-0 run early on in the ballgame. Led at 41-33 at half. Coastal forced overtime, and then Georgia Southern makes those 1 or 2 free throws to win the ballgame. Spudd Webb for Georgia Southern had 22 points. His name is Tavarus. All right, now that we like that, okay. We like Spudd better. We did have Tyron Moore had 21, and Applewhite had 14. They did not shoot it all that well. They only shot it 40% from the floor in the game. That's Georgia Southern. Coastal Carolina, as you can imagine, shot it worse. They shot at 37%. Not very good over there either. Dantzler for Coastal Carolina. AJ Dantzler had 22 points, and we had Joshua Beadle having 21. Jones chipped in with 14. Not a lot of bench points. Grand total is 7 from Coastal Carolina, and they generally played 6 guys. A couple of guys got a few minutes. Craig got Dejon Craig. He got 12, but that's these guys are all playing a lot of minutes. All right, Dantzler 34, Jones 41, Pete had 35 minutes, Beadle 39, and then Hill and Thompson 29 and 25. All right. On the other side, how about Spudd Webb playing 43 minutes? My goodness. Applewhite for Georgia Southern 39, and Moore had 35. Williams played only 10 as a starter. Carter 27. Points wise, they actually got a little bit more production from the bench. They got I got 25 points off the bench. That's big compared to the 7 that Coastal Carolina had. 25-7. I did the math, and the stats are over there on the side. So now Georgia Southern is 11-5. They're 3-0 in the Sun Belt. Are they? I know it's not. I know it's all one division, but are they the best team in the East? I know it's all one conference now. There's no divisions. I get it, but are they the best team in the East, or are they the best team in the Sun Belt? Could go that far. All right. Let's see who Georgia Southern has. As this was, by the way, this was Coastal Carolina's first loss at home. They are at Old Dominion. Is Georgia Southern? So that's not a far trip. But then Thursday, they have to take an odd trip. In fact, no, I'm sorry, next Saturday. They get a whole week off before they go to South Alabama for a 1-game road trip. And then they get Old Dominion at home, Coastal Carolina at home, Arkansas State at home, and Troy at home. So they get a 4-game homestand, and we're going to find out a lot about Georgia Southern. They should beat Old Dominion on Saturday. We'll see what happens at South Alabama. That game is on ESPNU. That's big time. That's a 2:00 afternoon ball game. But then they get Old Dominion and Coastal at home. Those should be wins. We'll see about Arkansas State and Troy. All right. That's where we will find out how good Georgia Southern is. And let's see here. Coastal Carolina, who had not lost at home, they fall to 8-7 overall, 1-2 in the Sun Belt. Southern Miss goes into Monroe and takes care of ULM 87-73. Ball game was not that close. 45-38 at halftime. Southern Miss on top, and they roll in the second half just as much the same. Won the first half by 7, won the second half by 7, and that's how you win by 14. My understanding is that there would be no math. Southern Miss shot 54% from the floor, 36% from 3, and even made their free throws 13 out of 15. They played a very solid ball game. Did Southern Miss. Let's see here. Tylik Weeks had 24 points, and then Bennett, Brumfield, and Lewis all chipped in with 14 each. All right. And they also got a little bit of bench play. They ended up with 19 points off of the bench. Let's see any other stats that stick out here. Rebounding, Southern Miss 46-24. Holy cow. And most of those are defensive rebounds. They only got 10 offensive rebounds. In fact, Southern Miss had more defensive rebounds, 36, than ULM had rebounds, period, which was 24. Turnover, Southern Miss had a little bit too many, 17 versus 12. Although they had a bunch more fast break points, 13-4 fast break points. And, of course, by those rebounding numbers, they had 46 points in the paint to Monroe's 34. All right. And they led by as much as 26. So not much of a ball game there. Again, I think Southern Miss may be better than the record indicates. We shall see how that goes. All right. They have improved to 8-7. They're 2-1 in the Sun Belt. Monroe 3-12, 0-3 in the Sun Belt. Looks to be another long year in North Central. Is it North Central Louisiana? Is that what we call it? Southern Miss gets the Cajuns on Saturday. That is at Louisiana. We'll see. Again, all you got to do is score 70. That's easier said than done. And in some cases, low 60s to beat the Cajuns. The Cajuns just don't have any firepower, but they do make the three. And they do defend well. All right. That is the one thing that they do. All right. That they do. Let me see if there's any good matchups. We did say on Saturday, Troy's taking on South Alabama this Saturday. That's a good matchup. Battle for the belt. That is in Troy. Southern Miss is at the Cajuns. You do have James Madison at Arkansas State. And that's about it. App and Marshall is a good matchup. All right. And then you do have, it's a full slate of ball games. Okay. Maybe get to watch some of that. Are they any of them on Saturday night after work? No, they're all during the day. We'll watch some replays of that. All right. That South Alabama Troy ball game is not until 4:30 Eastern time. I should be able to see most of the second half of that one. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had a lot of I told you so's on the internet. And some people did apologize. So that's nice. Nice to see. And again, not sitting here telling you JMU would beat Oregon on a neutral field. Not sitting here telling you that they would beat Texas Tech. Nope, not going to do that. What I am saying, and the facts back me up, JMU played better against Oregon in Eugene than Texas Tech did against Oregon on a neutral field. Just saying. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. All right. We will be back on a Monday. All right. Maybe we'll do a little Saturday evening recaps and Sunday morning recaps quickly. And of course, we'll have a full episode on Monday. All right. Appreciate you. Again, had a great year. The numbers are through the roof. And we're just that little G5 lockdown Sunbelt compared to some of these other guys that have, thousands and thousands of listeners and, do a great job. They all do a great job. But I'm really proud of the way more and more people are finding Locked On Sunbelt. So I do appreciate it. We're already off to a good start in terms of subscribers and watch and everything like that. And again, we got 6 weeks until maybe 7 until baseball season kicks in. And then we'll be into that. We're already actually thinking ahead of trying to get all of the baseball coaches on. We did that with football, but we started way too late with that. But we're going to try with the we did football. We got almost all the coaches on except one from Sunbelt Media Days. And we put those on as well. But hopefully we'll get the baseball, start reaching out now and start putting them on at the end of January, beginning of February. That is easy peasy. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been watching the Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Monday. And once again, Happy New Year.